everybody, to the podcast today. We've got a real treat. We have Dylioskee from Filthee Feet. What did I say there? Filthee Feet? Filthee Feet out of Victoria, BC, Canada. One of the, I believe, original members of Filthee Feet. So yeah, today we'll get a lot of history on that and like a lot of his background on Victoria's scene, which is super interesting if people don't know. Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Thanks so much. Yeah, I'm happy to be here and excited to have this chat.
Yeah, really excited. So to just start off, maybe for people who don't know who you are, might not know who you are, do you mind just giving a little background and maybe how you like got into dance or got into hip hop or whatever?
Yeah. Do you know what's funny? When you asked me to do this, I was starting to think about that,
Hmm.
and I was like, it took me a while to piece it together. I remember it was like literally being at like a grade 8 dance or something, and somebody just knew how to do like that. I don't even know what it's called, like the coffee grinder or whatever that
Yeah,
moves. And then getting him to teach me how to do that, and then I was like, oh, that's so cool, you know.
yeah.
And then there was like a couple people at my school who like didn't break dance but were like into hip hop, who knew how to do like the odd word move, like the worm,
Yeah.
or maybe even like how to do a backspin. And because I learned from the one kid, like, oh, he knows how to do this, and then I went and learned from him this like other one move, and then I just like was obsessed. And um, soon after that, I went down to Complex, when Complex, the store,
Oh yeah, yeah.
was started in Victoria. They're pretty big in Vancouver now. And so that was like the hip hop place in town.
Hmm.
So I went and asked them about anything that had to do with breakdancing, and they gave me some videos. And I think it was like Storms VHS,
Hmm.
and I think that's the only one I had for a while. And so in complete isolation, like had no other people to dance with, I like set up a piece of linoleum in like part of our like family room area. So like half the room became like a breakdancing area, and like cleared everything else to the other side of the room. And then I learned how to, like, from watching like Storm's videos, learned how to do like windmills and turtles and those kind of things.
Uh-huh.
And then eventually heard that there was like breakdancing classes um, in town. So I signed up for them, and Nathan was the teacher. And Ryan was in the class. And
For people who don't know, Nathan is another member of
yeah,
Filthy
yeah.
Feet, and Ryan is also another member. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was like the origin there. Well, yeah, Nathan was kind of already like dancing with Steve. So
Hmm.
they had like Steve was another member of Filthy Feet, Kid
Yeah,
Flo, and they were already kind of in a crew, like their idea of a crew, which was really funny. Like they didn't have anyone to battle or anything, but they did like performances and stuff together, right?
right.
And then yeah, so I went into that class, and I was like, they were like literally teaching the basics. Like there was no advanced class; it was like 6 steps and stuff like that. So I when I came in and I already like figured out how to do all like these like real basic power moves. It wasn't like long before I think I did like one class, and Nathan asked me to teach with him because he didn't have anyone else. I think somebody had just left. Like there used to be 2 people that taught it, and so I started teaching with Nathan. And yeah, we became really good buddies. I became really good buddies with Ryan through that, and then yeah, that's kind of that was the beginnings there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, like I remember I talked with Nathan a while ago, and just like we were talking about this sort of thing, like the early days of breaking in Victoria and stuff. And it
Yeah.
was like I seem to remember this story happening. Like a lot of the knowledge that was around was
Mm.
came from like Steve,
Yeah.
and his knowledge came from like one video.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think it
Exactly.
was like kind of like what happened with you, like
Hmm.
all the knowledge about this breaking thing and hip hop culture. I think he had like Beat Street or something like that.
Yeah. 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 It wasn't even like a real b boy video. It was like
Yeah, yeah.
It was one scene from a movie.
Yeah, yeah. And so you get like all your knowledge. It's kind of crazy to think about that. Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And like it's crazy. Like I'm realizing like how old I am. Like this is way before like YouTube or anything, right?
Hmm,
Like so, like
hmm.
knowledge was like hard to come by, and if you didn't have like influences from around you, like you kind of
Yeah,
got whatever you got, you know.
yeah.
And yeah, I think I introduced like the no, I think Steve had seen the Storm video, like one of his friends had it who had danced in the past or something. But that became big among all of us. And yeah, but it was a really really strange scene. So like they were like still doing the thing where they like wore crew colors and stuff like that. You know
That's
what I mean? It was
awesome.
like really funny. And we did too, because like I was like we were like the second crew in town, like the younger guys, and we just copied everything Steve did, right? And yeah, it's yeah, even like after we kind of went to Vancouver and realized like, oh, this isn't like people aren't still doing what they did in the '80s kind of thing. And like got it kind of like got more involved with like the dance scene. That isolation still played like I think a big role in our
Hmm.
like development. I think it helped us in some ways. Like I think we had a pretty creative crew and was like had a lot of kind of outside the box things going on, but also was kind of like I think in the long run detrimental in some ways. Like yeah, like for me personally, like definitely didn't have like enough like foundation to like hit that next level. You know, like I kind of knew enough to like get by, and I was like fairly creative, so that kind of lifted me up. But like it definitely was like a stump, and I only know this with like hindsight, like looking back now, and like following b-boying a bit, you know, ever since I stopped dancing, like
Hmm.
I can see like oh yeah, like that's what I should have done is like go back and work on that
Right.
foundational stuff so that I can kind of like work what I had working for me
Hmm.
into that. But yeah, like I didn't realize that at the time, and I
Right.
think a lot of us suffered from it. Nathan, when he moved to Vancouver and was like training with like Rory and Robin, and Robin himself was kind of in that same boat. But then
Hmm.
he got Rory moved back to Vancouver, and a bunch of them moved to Vancouver, and they kind of like figured that out. And I think
Hmm.
they really did take their like b-boying to the next level because of that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, like uh, for people who aren't familiar with like lower mainland geography,
Yeah.
like Victoria is a city that's on an island that's like separate from Vancouver. Maybe more people are familiar with Vancouver, but yeah, it's
Hmm.
Vancouver's a city on the coast, and then you take a ferry over to an island, and then there's
Hmm.
Victoria. So
Yeah.
it's like a little bit separate, and it takes like, I don't know, several hours to get there. So it's a bit of a trek to
Yeah.
come into like, um, say Vancouver or whatever. But
Mhm.
like you said, sometimes that isolation can be very beneficial, and it
Hmm.
helps. I think like foster. This is something that came up with Nathan too. Is
Hmm.
like it's like you go out and you see these things and you get this inspiration, but then you come back into your like closed off
Yeah.
place without that influence, and then you
Hmm.
you you work with that information that you have. It's kind of like I was listening to this too with like some other design, like some design podcasts, and they were talking about like restrictions are sometimes really really beneficial to creating, and having
Hmm.
no restrictions is really difficult sometimes because you don't even
Yeah.
know what you're operating within, right? Or there's too
Yeah.
many options, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, I agree with that 100%. Even tying into like what I do now, which is Coast Salish art.
Hmm.
Um, it's a very, it's one of those like few traditional arts that has like a really big like contemporary market.
Hmm.
And so you're always walking this like kind of fine line, like you have to be innovative to like stand out and stuff.
Right.
Always like trying to like make sure that traditional core is there and represented, and it's yeah, and like the restrictions I think are what make it like such a fun thing to do for me.
Hmm.
Even I had one exhibit where I didn't do Salish art. I just like kind of did more modern paintings and stuff, and it was funny because like I think it's just kind of like um yeah, just my instinct as being a Coast Salish artist, that like the whole concept for the show was I set these restrictions where I only use straight lines and circle fragments, and seeing
Hmm.
what I could design using those.
Hmm.
So I like had like grit paper and did that, and I was really happy with what I came out with. But like as soon as I had like the idea, I was just like messing around one day and came up with some cool stuff, and I realized that's what I was doing. Once I had those like constraints in mind, I was just like all these designs flowed out, and that's why
Right.
for like just a small period of my life, that's what I focused on. But I had to have those constraints. Like
Hmm.
it was the only other time I ever like felt inspired to do something else. You know, it was
Hmm.
because of the constraints. Yeah, it
Yeah.
became interesting to me. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like super interesting, that walking that fine line of like how
Hmm.
much do you confine it, how much do you open up, and like
Yeah.
and I think depending on the situation and what you're doing, like it's always going to be a little different.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, can you talk a little bit about your artwork and like
Yeah. Sure. Sure.
how you got into that and like the kinds of things that you do?
Yeah. So I've always been like like a like a drawer, like an illustrator in a sense. Like some of my earliest memories are like me and my dad playing this like crude form of Pictionary, where like we would just draw something until the other guy could figure out what it was, say it, and then it would be my turn.
Oh, nice.
And this is like 3 years old, they said. And my like I have ADHD, so like attention's always been like a very scarce resource in my mind, kind of thing.
Hmm.
And my mom said like once they figured out that I like drawing, I would just sit there and draw for like hours. And like by like 5 years old, it was like hours at a time, you know.
Hmm.
And so I knew I like grow. And nothing really grabbed me in school, and I had a bunch of different ideas and stuff. But it was the only thing that I kind of did my whole life was like sketching and stuff like that. So like growing up, it was like drawing like comic book heroes, or
Hmm.
when I was younger, WWE wrestlers, or
Nice.
WWF, sorry, at the time. You know what I mean? Like drawing pictures of them, or yeah, things like that. So like if you had asked me till I was like 15, I would have said I was going to be like a comic book illustrator or a cartoonist or something like that, you know.
Hmm.
And then you turn 18 and you're like, okay, it's probably not going to happen. And the so I was like, okay, I graduated. I didn't know what I was going to do, so I'm like, okay, I'm going to try and find this pragmatic thing to do. So I'm going to go to Emily Carr. I'm going to become a graphic designer. It'll be like at least it's this creative thing where it seems like you could probably make some money out of it if you're good at it. And I had to like upgrade. I didn't do like great in high school. I had like lost interest in school by that point. I'd managed to graduate, but like barely.
Hmm.
And so in the meantime, I had to do some upgrading, and I was waiting. And then I found out that an artist named Randy Cook was looking for students,
Hmm.
and so I kind of put my name in the hat there, and he asked me to come work with them.
Hmm.
And I had done a bit. I had like little times where I would be like focusing on like Northwest Coast artwork, but it was never like a consistent thing. But I always liked it. My parents are collectors, so it was like all over our walls as kids, and it was mostly just me copying the things I saw on the walls at my parents' house.
Hmm.
And then but I was just kind of copying different styles. So there's like regional styles to the Northwest Coast here. For those who don't know the Northwest Coast, it's like the area between like Washington State and Alaska. There's a bunch of different indigenous cultures along the coast, but they all are very, even though they spoke different languages and are like they have different customs and stuff. They were really well connected through trading and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And they all shared a few features, like they were canoe traveling people whose primary food source was salmon, and they were potlatching people, so they lived in big houses and threw feasts, which were like really important culturally.
Hmm.
And so I was just copying different styles all over my walls, my parents' walls at that point. And then I had Randy worked with Randy Cook, and he's like, "You have to do Salish art," and I was like, I'd never even really explored it. And he got me like looking at artifacts and stuff, and he didn't know how to do Salish art, but he knew how to teach me how to like study artifacts and learn from them. And like
Hmm.
he's like, just copy those for now and like figure them out and figure out how all these kind of components work together. And
Hmm.
then once you do that, you're going to try and flip them, right? Like look at a spindle and then do your own interpretation once you have like a hang of that. And
Hmm.
so got me doing that. And like once I started doing that, man, it was like a passion I couldn't even like imagine. Like it was like something that was like missing in my life. It kind of makes me believe in like those kind of cultural memories, because it was just like, oh my goodness, like this is what I was supposed to be doing my whole life,
Right,
essentially.
right.
Yeah. And the one thing I really learned from that apprentice that ties to like b-boying was um, a lot of the things I learned along my life, like I had other kind of creative avenues that I went down. I always had this like tendency to like want to get to the fun stuff and skip like the foundational stuff.
Right.
And like I would learn just enough to get by of the foundational stuff and get into all what I really wanted to do, right? And because I had a teacher who was like guiding me along, like that wasn't happening. And I would have done that if Randy would have let me, you know? Like let me get into the really, really fun, exciting stuff. And like I was kind of like, oh, I gotta study artifact law. And but he forced me to do that, and I'm so grateful that he did, because like it's the first thing, the first kind of like creative avenue where like I feel like I really met my potential because I was forced to do that, and I like did it one step at a time, working my way up into what I thought was the fun stuff. And yeah, it was like yeah, one of the things like looking back at b-boying, I wish I did, because yeah, it's just like I could feel those kind of limitations, and like I said, everywhere in my life that was like a problem for me, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something like I have like some friends who when they were younger they studied like piano. Their parents forced them to like study piano or something like
Mm-hmm.
that and they hated it completely. But like some of them became musicians later on and they realized like, oh, that was so beneficial. I didn't like
Mm-hmm.
think about it, but I'm actually so thankful that they did it. And other times too, it's like not even necessarily related to music, but
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it was like just that discipline of like doing
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
It didn't really matter what it was, but it's like doing something that you learn like I don't know, very like step by step. You learn
Mm-hmm.
the foundation and you practice hard and you practice it and you gain this form of like discipline
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and an understanding of like how to learn something too. And
Yeah.
it's super useful. And I think like you know as far as like breaking goes, like they could learn a lot from studying like how people pick up things, and
Yeah. Yeah.
I think people do that. There's a lot of emphasis on like learn these movements, study the history, study these
Mm-hmm.
people, look at these people. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Mm-hmm.
super super interesting to hear that
Yeah.
that parallel is also like in other places.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. Yeah. Me and Nate were just talking about that too. Like having like I think I saw people in like 2005 or something, and have I've learned a lot and done a lot since then. And looking back to, yeah, like I got really interested in like how to learn something,
Hmm.
because I have went on these things, like I was like kind of a competitive pool player, and
Oh, that's right.
like just learning about how to like pick up a skill and stuff. Like if I could apply that to back to b-boying, like we were laughing because like the idea of like drilling something till it's like in your head, do the muscle memories there and stuff, like we never even thought of that. You know what I mean? Like we might like practice some whole set we were doing, and like you know hitting it enough that we will hit it on the day. You know?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, the when it comes to the creative aspect, like I do, like you ever heard about like Charles Darwin when he went to those Galapagos Islands, and like the separation between those like finches, like
Right.
formed like really specific things. So, like, that's what I feel like it was. Like we had like such a bizarre circumstance back on the island that yeah, like it wouldn't have even been like, I don't think I would have at that time like really dug into the like foundation and the history, even if it was there. But we didn't even really have the opportunity because we were just going off these videos. It got a
Hmm.
little bit later. Once we started buying videos, Complex I think started like stocking more. So
Hmm.
like we would be picking up like the newest freestyle session and stuff like that, and that helped out a lot. But that's like where we got most of our influence. And then like a little later on, um, started going to Vancouver, and then yeah, we got a lot better once we started like really getting in the Vancouver scene.
Yeah.
Um, and it was another thing me and Nate were laughing about was like, I don't know if like I would let like I have two daughters now, but like letting them do what we did. Like we started going to Vancouver when we were like 13. And we at first, like when we were that young, like my uncle would pick us up and we'd stay at his house and they'd get us to the event. But we were doing it so much because we were just like so hungry, right, and wanted to battle. And there was nothing going on in Victoria, and we started like learned how to like bus into Vancouver probably before we were like 15 and like travel around Vancouver by ourselves. And we're going down to Seattle probably before we were 16.
Really?
And back then you could get across the border with a signed note from your parents.
Right.
So we'd like get on the Greyhound bus, a bunch of kids, and they would be like reading all these things. And like I think I had the phone number, so sometimes they would like call one of our parents to make sure that this is legit, and then they would just let us go. Like things have changed since then.
Yeah. I think like even when I started like traveling with the crew, like there was times when Robin still had to have like a note from his parents or something because
really?
Because he was younger.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's crazy that was a thing.
Yeah. And Nathan was saying like with the people we were staying with, we had just like I was trying to remember how we met Jason. He was the guy who threw the PLU jams.
Okay, yeah.
And I cannot remember how we met him, but I think we went to one of their jams, and at that time we'd like affording, we're like 15, 16. So we had like part-time jobs and stuff, but like affording like to get a hotel was like just insane, right?
Yeah.
So we managed to like get enough money, had to save up to like afford a hotel for a weekend. And then we met Jason who ran it, and then after that he started letting us stay at his house when we came to his jams, and that was like now we can go all the time, right? Because I can't even remember we were teaching b-boying and stuff like that, like not even like real part-time jobs, right? And just this little bit of cash, and we had to get our like bus tickets down there, and we had to feed ourselves for a weekend, and so it was really expensive. But like taking away that like the hotel money was like the biggest thing, and we just started going down to Seattle all the time, man. And got really close to like dance rooms and stuff, Woody and Germs and those guys, and Complex went back before he was in dance rooms and that kind of stuff.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah.
Just speaking of like border stuff and just how like weird it is sometimes, especially if you're like a dancer or whatever. But there was like one time when I was going down and I was staying with Bless.
Oh yeah.
And it was just it like clicked in my head how weird this situation was as I was crossing the border, because they're like, okay, what are you doing? Oh yeah, just like visiting friends. And like, well, where are you staying? Like, oh, at a friend's house. How do you know him? Like, oh, just through like dancing and stuff. We dance together, and that was kind of weird too. And then I was like, oh wait, like it just like hit me. I was like, please don't ask me what his name is, because like I don't know his real name. At that time, I didn't know his real name. I was like, DJ Bless one. Like, what am I supposed to... His name is Bless. I don't know his last name. Like, that's terrible, right?
Yeah.
But it's like some of these weird things that come up with like being in the dance world, and like you don't know people's real names sometimes. Yeah, it's just so strange.
I probably I think I know Woody's name, but I wouldn't even be like 100% sure of that. You just called him Woody all the time, right? And few of them that you'd find out by like hearing other people call him something, but but half of the time you have no clue, right?
Yeah, it's super weird.
I know. There was we had some ones too, like where people like really skeptical, and like you were like unsure if they were going to let us across. The good thing was like we were young and we looked innocent, and they wanted to believe us, they didn't have like that sketchy like early 20-year-old vibes. It was just like, what are you doing, man? And they would like grill us sometimes, like, where's it at, blah blah blah. and they would always say something like, "I thought that died out in the '80s" or something.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Like
Well,
over and over again.
I think like Rory figured out the trick. It's like you
Mm.
tell him, you never say you're going to like, because one time Robin said like, oh yeah, we're going to like a hip hop show, and
Oh
then they
yeah, yeah.
really started grilling us, and
Hmm.
then Rory figured it out. I was like, no, you never say that. You always say like, oh, we're going to breakdance
Hmm.
event, and then if
Yeah.
you're, are you competing? No, you just say that. But as long
Hmm.
once they hear breakdance, they're like, oh, these like clowns, they're still
Yeah,
doing this
exactly.
crap from
Yeah.
the '80s, right?
They're,
And then
they're, they're
like,
doing that Beat Street scene that
yeah,
inspired us.
exactly, right? And then like half the time they're like, "Oh, can you show me or something?" Like sometimes you have
Yeah,
to go inside, right?
yeah,
And once you
that's
do that, like I man, Rory has some hilarious stories with that too. But yeah,
yeah, yeah, totally.
um, yeah,
Yeah, I
border
totally remember
border
that. They would
stories.
ask us to do something like that happened multiple times there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Tip: always say you're going to a break dance and say
yeah,
break dancing.
yeah, yeah,
Say
yeah,
b-boying or even just breaking. People might like,
yeah,
what is this? I don't know.
yeah, yeah. And hip hop is like, yeah, they're
Yeah,
picturing
yeah.
like, yeah,
Never do that.
guns and joints and
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Um, maybe this is a good segue into, so like you guys would travel a lot, and a lot of times it's like road trips and stuff because it's not always like flying, but yeah, traveling.
Hmm.
And there's some, at least with our crew, there's some like legendary kind of car games that have been
Oh,
created
yeah,
that
yeah.
I feel like some people should know about.
So I'm trying to think. So the one was the the Deuce is Wild. Yeah, yeah, that was the. Were you on that trip?
I think I was on that trip. I wasn't there for the
Yeah,
other
yeah.
one. Yeah,
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. The Deuce Wild one was the replacing the word deuce in like some
in
in like a
any
title of
context, right?
yeah, 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 pretty much. But like TV shows,
Yeah,
movie
yeah, yeah,
names, and they would like yeah get really where you placed it could make it really funny.
yeah,
And then the other one, this is like so weird, by the way.
yeah,
So
yeah. It's
to
really
prepare people.
obscure.
And yeah, the it started because somebody had like cigars, and they said I think they're called Sweet Orients,
Hmm.
and Nathan thought it said Sweet Onion, thought they were Sweet Onion cigars, and then I don't know, somebody took their shoes off, and Nathan just he was like, "All aboard the Sweet Onions Super Orient Express" or something like that. And then like I don't even know how how it went from there, but like then we started. I can't. I'm trying to remember the exact rules to the game, but it was like uh, a mode of transportation, a food item, and a place. And so we kept it. So it was like the honey garlic Hungarian hang glider, and like so it got like more because you like ran out of like cars and stuff pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And it just got like more obscure, and I'm trying. Oh god, that's like
Well,
the only one I remember for some reason. The
yeah,
Hungarian
like
honey garlic hang glider.
that's a good point too, because it's like, and I think these kinds of games are really useful for just like
Yeah,
getting your creative juices flowing. Because like you said, you run out of options really quickly, and you start
yeah,
having to be like get creative with what you're doing, and
yeah,
well, how loose can we get with this definition of what a mode of transportation is? And so the one that
yeah.
I always remember is the Qualicum quail egg quantum leap.
Yeah, that one has like a backstory too because
Yeah.
so some we were like it was like a 13-hour road trip to Edmonton. So yeah, like a long we're driving over the Rockies, and so this game comes up, and we just like keep playing it. And Rory was always a bit more like reserved than the rest of us, so we were
Yeah.
like getting so into this game. Somebody would come up with a good one, we're like oh, and the car would erupt, you know. And we wanted one with Q that started with Q, and Nathan had come up with quantum, or I'm sorry, yeah, qualitum
Qualicum.
quail egg, and we couldn't think of a mode of transportation, and it was like went silent. We're all like just racking our brain for Q, and Rory just was getting so annoyed with the game at this point. He's driving, and then just like reluctantly, he's like, quantum leap. Like, oh, we were going nuts. And like, yeah, this is like after we were really clear that like Rory hated the game.
Oh my god.
The Qualicum Quail Quantum Leap.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
Rory was like a little bit older than everyone too, right?
Well, yeah, exactly.
And he's driving.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And like there was like this even from like, you know, like I think we were like 16 when we met him, so he's already like an adult, and he's like he had a car too. That was a game changer, right? Like because like none of us had cars or like money to like run a car, so like he would like drive us down to these events, and that was like the next step. So we were going down lots and stuff. But yeah, a bit older than us, and we had like way younger energy. And then it was like he didn't hate it enough that like we wanted to stop. Like it was like we loved like bugging him, so like we like leaned into anything that like annoyed Rory. So yeah, this was like we were like older at this point, and like I wasn't dancing anymore. I just went to go to the Edmonton Jam with them, but it was funny. Like we fell back into those roles so quickly. I was like an adult at this point, but we loved that Rory hated the game. That old dynamic of like us being the 16-year-old and him being the older guy like kicked in like immediately. Yeah,
I think like maybe this is the case, but like some people who knew our crew, and like when you see us battle, especially in like the earlier days, like when I first battled you, this came up because you sent me the video recently. But like you guys were such dicks. Like in the beginning, right? And like totally. So you were like very serious and like trying to trash talk everyone and like really trying to like win. And you guys were really competitive at that time too, right? So it's like it makes sense. And like as far as the dick thing going, I thought it was funny. I think it was you or Nathan were saying like the people that you guys used to battle that were like kind of like ahead of you guys used to be such dicks to you that you guys just kind of like passed on. You're like, well, we should. I feel like it's our duty to pass on this trauma to other people.
No, it wasn't even that. It was more like, oh, that's what good crews do.
Everyone,
you got
you have to do it.
That's like the isolation thing again, right? So yeah, when we were starting going to Vancouver, like we were like cringy. Nathan, I don't remember this, but Nathan said we showed up with like wearing glow sticks or something like when we were like 13, right? And so like they have this impression, oh my god, those Victoria kids are so lame, right? And so like they were kind of dicks to us, and like we were like annoying little kids when we first started up, right? We were like wanting to learn from the hey guys, you know what I mean? And then we slowly kind of got out of that vibe. And then they were still dicks to us because, like, they, you know, I mean, we were still like the not so good crews. And as we got better, we got a little bit of respect from them, became buddies with them. Like we used to hang out with like the Body Language, like Keenan and those guys, pre-Soul Felons, SN, like Straight No Chaser crew and stuff. Like we'd hang out with some of those guys and stuff. That is just what we thought like good crews do. You're like absolute assholes to the like not so good crews. And so we'd been battling for a long time, and then like Blink and Robin had joined our crew, and they were getting really like starting to like pick up some momentum as dancers. And a lot of us who had been dancing for a long time, like Steve and me and Nate and stuff, had like really improved over this little span. And like we knew we were like ready, we could like win competitions at this point. And we came up to that jam where that clip was from, where like you finger Nathan right in the face, which is so funny because you guys became such good buddies. But yeah, we just thought like, oh, we got to be like cocky and blah blah blah, and like. Looking back at it though, like we were like laughing and like we were having a good time, but like just kind of way more obnoxious and aggressive than we thought we were being at the time. And yeah, like we like did not stop talking to the crew while they were dancing that whole Battle City jam. And like there's this funny moment where the guy I think it was in your crew, he's like top rocking and Nathan's like, can you do a backspin? Like really loud, and the guy stops. He's like like start mid track. He's like, what the fuck? And like looks back at his crew, and like we were just start howling and stuff. But yeah, like I think we were like that for like a couple more jams, and then like kind of chilled out. We won that battle. We went on like a pretty big winning streak for like a couple of years there, and I think like after a while, like everyone hating us, we're like, okay, we gotta stop doing this. I think this is coming off differently than we imagined. There was just like weird energy that was kind of going on at that time, and when we won a few battles too, I think like we realized too, like back in the day, like dance rooms were kind of like that, but they were like battling good crews, you know, and we were like doing it to people who were like, yeah, it just like was not necessary, and you know, like we were just kind of still figuring it out. Even at that time, you know, we've been dancing for years, but we still had that like weird isolation. It's kind of like a homeschooled person where, you know, there's like there's the kind of social cues that they might not
right.
You know? There's not like it's bad, but they're like just something a little bit different about them. That's what like us as a crew.
yeah. But like what I think about is too, it's like my first impressions, and I think for people who saw you guys during that time, like you had this impression that like, oh, okay, yeah, they're like maybe serious dancers and like trying to be serious, trying to be competitive and stuff like that. But like once I got to know you guys a lot better, and like especially after we started like traveling and doing these road trips and stuff, like you really see like just how much of like everyone is just they're just clowns. Everyone's they're all trolls, and like just hearing you talk about like egging on Rory, and because it's like you're the obnoxious older brother who bugs their little brother because you know it bugs them. There's no other reason other than that. And so it's like I remember one time, like speaking of just like bugging people, it was like Nathan for whatever reason was like staying at my place or something, and this is like almost midnight or something like that, and for some reason we got in our head that like this robot voice, you know, like you can have the text to speech kind of thing, like it has that robot voice, like Stephen Hawking's kind of voice thing. And like for some reason, I don't know how we got onto it, but it was like so funny to us. And then we started taking like lyrics to like classic like hip hop songs and putting it through that voice. And then for some reason we were like, oh, we should call, because I think we were listening to it was like some song. Oh, it was like Cream, like the Wu-Tang song, Cash Rules Everything Around Me, whatever. And Rob, for people who don't know, Robin and our crew, I don't know if he's still like this, but maybe not, but he used to be like super cheap, and his nickname was Top Value, right, for a long time, and maybe still is. He still rocks the value. But we called him at like, I don't know, it was like midnight or something, and then just randomly played that like Cash Rules Everything Around Me, like the lyrics from the song, but through this robot voice. And then Robin just immediately hung up. And then we called Rory, and it had some other, I forget what song it was, some random hip hop song. And he was like, who is this? And we just kept playing the thing, and we're kind of like giggling in the background, and he's like, oh, come on, man.
I remember that. What you talking about, dog?
Yeah, what you talking about, dog? That's it. It's just like, I think it came out a lot more this like joking, stupid side. Like it came out more publicly, I guess, when like me and Mark joined the crew, and I guess like when after like a lot of people stopped dancing, and it was just me and Mark and like a few other people, like younger guys, and like I don't know, I guess we that's just like who we are out in public too. Especially Mark, right? So you see it in his dancing. Right?
Oh, big time. Yeah. Like we never thought to like bring that kind of energy into our dancing, which is funny. I think like a lot of our like battle personas were just like this is what a good cruise look like, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Because of
yeah, yeah.
that influence thing. And but yeah, like looking at like people like Byron, like that would be more naturally me, you know? Byron's
Right.
really goofy
Yeah.
and has like that vibe, like gets into his dancing.
Hmm.
And that's like way more like the type of person I am. But like back then
Hmm.
you just had to be like serious and aggressive and like yeah.
But I think
So,
it still like came out in a good way. It was like you guys had that aggressive nature that's sort of
mhm.
like part of, in some ways, part of like the breaking foundation. Not
Yeah.
necessarily like being hateful or anything like, but like aggressive, right? And intense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
But
yeah,
you
yeah.
also had this like this, in my opinion, like this really interesting way of approaching the dance and like really
Mm-hmm.
creative in that sense that because probably because you guys didn't have a lot of like frame of reference. You didn't have,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like Ken Swift come into your city or something like that and
Yeah,
telling
yeah.
you like this is how it was and this is the
Mm-hmm.
mentality and stuff. You guys were just kind of like making it up and going along with,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
whatever information you had. But like you guys had these super creative ideas. Like it was one of the things that you did. It's like a it's like a triple threaded air chair that you like tracked out of or something like
Yeah, yeah,
that. You
yeah,
know, like
yeah.
I still to this day I've never seen someone do something like that. Or some of the threads that you would come up with were like super crazy.
Oh,
Yeah.
thanks, man. Yeah, that was like that was like what was interesting to me was like the yeah, what like that really kind of creative and coming up with something new. And I do there was like a bit of like an era thing there too. Me and Nathan were talking about how like difficulty was like so prized during our era.
Hmm.
Like if it wasn't like hard to do, like now, like you know, looking at b boys nowadays, they'll get like huge tiers if something was like just like clean and creative. But back then, it like had to be hard too,
Hmm.
and like I'm glad that that's kind of gone. But yeah, there's the for me and Nate, I was chatting with him recently, and it was like yeah, the real artistic side is what like really interested us. You know what I mean? Like the
Yeah.
that kind of creative expression and that. And yeah, like I loved like yeah, kind of like complex threads and those kind of things. Yeah, yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, and you can especially see it with Nathan too. Like he's
Mm-hmm.
still to this day, even though he doesn't really, I think he maybe dances like here and there on his own,
Mm-hmm.
privately, but he's still to this day when I see some of the older footage, it's like I'm blown away every time because
Yeah.
the ideas that he had and it's the kind of thing like I was saying, like you can have that understanding of, I guess, the sort of like essence of breaking, and it has these elements, but how do you kind of like take it your own? It's kind of like
Yeah.
what you're saying with your Coast Salish artwork and how you're
Mm-hmm.
learning that. It's like here's the framework that you work within, understand
Mm-hmm.
that, but then take it your own direction. And
Yeah. Yeah.
like, yeah, some of
Yeah.
the
I kind of.
things that it's that he was really good at was like questioning why do I have to do it this way or something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he would do stuff like he'd do this like little walkover in footwork and then stop every part of his body and then just like roll his head or something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like why
Yeah.
would you
Yeah.
think of that? But it's so dope.
Yeah, I know. Especially that was like the era when he started like kind of had that realization that I said I never had, where it's like, okay,
Mm,
if you get enough of this
yeah,
foundation, you can still be creative and stuff. Or like almost we almost had an attitude back then where it was like, oh, like hamper our creativity, which isn't true, and I understand that now from like learning a lot of other things, right?
yeah,
Like having I feel like creativity when you're especially when you're like working from a tradition, which like Coast Salish art is and b-boying is, like the as long as your roots are like really dug into the ground, like the tree can grow as high as it wants, right?
hmm
It's like not having those roots is makes a tree inability to keep growing. I kind of feel like that's like any kind of tradition you're working with in the art forms like that, right? And he went and learned a lot of the things that we kind of skipped over when we started. And yeah, that era of Nate is like so good, man. Like
yeah,
I was watching a bunch of battles recently. That's kind of how we started talking, was because I was just like
yeah,
going
yeah,
down that rabbit hole.
hmm
And yeah, like those and a lot of his stuff was so it was really simple, but like so. dynamic looking, and
Yeah.
unexpected, right? He would like do these movements where like you're sure that like 95% of b-boys would do this thing next, like the momentum was going that way, it like leads to that really naturally, and Nathan would do like something completely different. And yeah, it was really impressive, his thing. And um I think Nate had a lot of potential. If he kind of he was with us in the beginning, and then he went to school and kind of
Hmm.
quit. He never kind of got a chance to like dig into it, even as deep as some of the rest of us.
Yeah.
And yeah, his stuff was really really cool.
Yeah.
I think even today, if he was doing some of that stuff, it'd be really
Yeah.
really impressive.
Yeah. Yeah. Like he's one of, you know, there's people who are like, especially in Canada, these like unsung heroes that maybe
Yeah.
they never really traveled like internationally or whatever, or they just
Mm-hmm.
didn't get out there that much.
Mm-hmm.
But the people that know, and like,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Yeah, it is really cool like that, especially the earlier days before YouTube. Like nowadays, probably people get a little bit of exposure more so,
hmm,
even if they're not a big traveler or anything. But in
hmm,
those early days, yeah, if you didn't get in front of people, like there was no chance for anyone to see,
yeah, yeah,
And there was a lot of good b-boys, Like I saw
yeah,
that that's why I love that Bag of Clips
yeah,
channel. It's really cool, man. Like I
hmm,
dig through that all the time to see
hmm,
just random b-boys from random places in
yeah,
Canada. But
yeah,
yeah, like G1 didn't get out much, but like had
yeah,
some crazy stuff, man.
yeah. He's definitely another one. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
there's a bunch that, yeah, maybe one day they'll
Hmm.
have some kind of resurgence. Like Mikas was like that for a long time.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
know, like people didn't know. Only people from like Toronto knew, and
Hmm.
maybe some
Hmm.
people like on the East Coast in the
Yeah,
U.S. and
New York
stuff,
or something.
New
Yeah,
York, and like, but only some people.
yeah, yeah.
And like, but then afterwards, footage gets out and just more stories and things like that. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like
yeah,
all that early footage is him like dancing outside on cardboard.
yeah,
You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
Like he wasn't even in like
yeah,
competitions and was like
yeah,
he had a I don't know where I saw that early Migas footage, but that had a huge influence on me. I
yeah.
remember like at some point someone showed me that,
Hmm.
which I was trying to figure it out because it was like there was no YouTube. I must have been like traveling and somebody had a copy of some footage of him. But
Hmm.
like that blew my mind, and like yeah, I remember like that was like a big change change for me.
Yeah,
Like I was just like, wow, like there is a whole different like arena in b-boying that you can explore.
yeah. And I think too, like I've mentioned this a few times in some of the other talks, but like with what's trendy or what's appreciated in breaking, like anything, it comes in these like waves and stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's like trends, and this becomes really popular and more easily appreciated or noticed. And like for some people, it's like they're ahead of their time or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and it just takes time for like the rest of the scene to catch up and that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and yeah, I don't know.
yeah.
I think Nathan's one of those people.
Yeah, yeah, I wouldn't. Yeah, I would agree, man. Like it
Yeah,
was. Yeah, I'm so impressed with a lot of those
yeah,
sets he did back in the day.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
he's so creative, man. Yeah,
yeah,
like yeah, and you do even some of the like um as I've like been watching kind of newer b-boy clips, you do see some of that stuff like that wasn't done back then. But like you were saying, like those head rolls and things like
hmm,
that, where like yeah, like the whole body like stops, rolls, and then like that momentum carries into it. Like you
yeah,
kind of see some of that stuff coming in there, but it was
hmm,
pretty fresh when he was doing it.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and this was like 10 years ago that he was doing this or something.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
pretty crazy to think about.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's kind of weird because we like usually I start with this like history stuff, but we kind of
Mm-hmm.
like veered off into this other stuff that was just super fun and entertaining. But like I want people to get a better idea of like what Victoria was like in the
Yeah.
earlier days
Oh, okay.
when you were started and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, so can you talk a little bit about that and like who are some of the people or the crews and like yeah.
So essentially what happened was Steve started he kind of did the same thing as me, completely in isolation, started studying breakdance through some videos. He got like a lot further than me in like power moves. He had been doing it quite a few years in isolation, so you know how to do like head spins and 90s and things I was like I wasn't doing yet. But the same idea, he just kind of did it for longer and figured out a lot. And he started teaching breakdancing, and like everybody who danced in Victoria was either like directly Steve students or students of Steve students. I'm not joking.
Yeah,
So like
yeah.
there's like this like a family tree that branches out. But eventually there was like this scene like when I started teaching with Nathan at like 13 or 14. Um, what happened is like there was a lot of classes going on around the city through Steve's students and Steve's class, and a bunch of like little crews started up at one point. So this is like the really early, like before we were really battling Vancouver. And yeah, it was just kind of funny, and they were all influenced by Steve and had like kind of crew colors, like real cringy type stuff. And there'd be like little battles and stuff, but like no competitions or anything like that. And it was essentially like dance studios had their own crews. So like the
Hmm.
different dance studios that had different classes and different teachers would start crews. That was kind of it. Or maybe like schools or geography would play a little bit of a role in it.
Yeah,
But at one
that's what
point
I
there was like
heard.
four crews or something. Yeah.
Yeah, I heard there was like every school had a crew or something like that at one
Yeah.
point. Yeah.
Yeah. There was, it was so funny. Like we have some videos of to never be seen under like lock and key of some of those like early battles, and that are so funny. But like every once in a while, like the people who are there will get together and we'll watch it, and we will just like cry laughing. There's like little sayings that like come from that me and Nathan still say to this day.
Yeah.
Like even like my wife, like there's like an evolution to this. So there was this one time where like one of those battles, somebody's like prepubescent, like fighter, and then somebody else like in the background, you just hear somebody just go fighter.
Is that where that comes from?
Yeah, that's one of those early videos, and then me and Nathan, and went to Robin's cabin with like just a bunch of like non-dance friends, and like spent a day at like Lake Cowichan. And this is back when like we were I don't drink anymore, but back when I drank, and we were all kind of drunk, and we had that had came up, the it came up, and then Nathan saw a spider, and he was like spider, and my wife now, my girlfriend at the time, she was like asleep and drunk, and she like we thought she was sound asleep. Nathan's like spider, and she's like spider, and so like still to this day that like if somebody says spider, we'll say that, or if the word bite comes up, you'll hear people saying that. But yeah, these weird inside jokes from those early battles.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, I just remember hearing you guys saying that stuff, and it would be like, yeah, like, biter, 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 just, like randomly. And it just sounds like stupid and funny, but yeah,
Mm-hmm.
knowing understanding a bit more of the origin story. Yeah.
Yeah, and like we had so many inside jokes that like you would forget. It just became kind of like part of your lexicon, and then like you'd be like with like normal people and say something like that. Like, you might just yell out spider, and then like they don't like look at you and you're like, oh yeah, like not
Okay, you don't know
everyone's on these jokes.
this.
There's like this deep lore to the
Yeah.
crew that yeah, it still lives on today. I love when like those things get passed on to other people who weren't there. I find that so funny. Like Kayla will say things like that, you know.
um, yeah. So yeah, back then, this is something that I really like. But what were some of the crew names and stuff? Like, what were some of the
Oh,
crews?
oh baby,
They're pretty good.
yeah. So the we were this pre Filthee Feet were Colossal Chaos Crew, so C3. Um, I think that Steve and Nathan were in a crew when like I started, and they were like New Age B-boys, which like yeah, that's NBC, I think. Right? And then there was like Lucky Charms crew, Kinetic Effects, Downside Up. There was like yeah, all sorts of really funny funny names there. And like in those old battles, like you'd see like these like a bunch of 13-year-old kids, and they'd all be wearing like one color. So it's so
What
funny.
what
Just
was
a,
what was Dave's crew
oh,
name? Something Breakas. Mad.
Mad Scale Breakers. Yeah, yeah. Oh, I forgot about Dave's crew. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. They
yeah,
were like the Oak Bay crew. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
So like eventually, like that whole scene just kind of like dwindled away, and the people who were still dancing pretty much all joined Filthy Feet.
right,
There was like
right.
one practice spot. We all started hanging out, and it is weird. Like we were like brothers from another mother. Like truly, like Dave is so goofy.
Yeah,
Nathan,
yeah,
Ryan wasn't like a little more serious, but like was had a pretty goofy side to him, and
yeah.
like totally got into that, and like even Robin was like a little more serious, but like got along with us so well, and Blink was like on a whole nother level goofy.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just remember going to Calgary with Rory, Mark, and Dave,
Mm-hmm.
and like that's like a 10-hour drive or so.
Mm-hmm.
And it was weird too because we did that. We thought like, okay, we'll leave to beat like traffic and stuff like that so that we can get there sooner. We'll leave at like midnight and drive
Yeah.
through the night. And that was a heck of a drive. And there was some weird stuff that happened during that. But
Yeah.
but I think
That
like
was
by
Rory's move, by the way, the midnight drive.
yeah, yeah.
He loved
Well, it
it.
was crazy because like during that drive, it was like people, hopefully Rory, whoever was driving, I think it was Dave, maybe Rory.
Mm,
Hopefully they were like awake enough. But
mm.
a lot of us were kind of like drifting in and out of sleep,
Yeah,
and there was
yeah.
this crazy fog that we ran into, like at one point, and it was like something out of like a horror movie. It was like so like actually before that, it was like we were driving and we see this like huge lineup of cars, and we're like, what the hell? And there's like a cow on the other going the other way, so it's
Oh
just
my
like on the
God.
road at like in the middle of the night. It was pretty crazy. And then yeah,
That's weird.
we get into this deep fog, and then maybe this is my memory kind of like making it more fantastical than it actually was, but I swear
Mm-hmm.
it was like this. We get into the fog, and it's like, oh man, this is kind of crazy, and Dave's like concentrating really hard, and then the fog kind of breaks, and like I don't know, maybe like soon after that, a minute or seconds after, there's a guy on the road and he's all bloody, and they got into like a car accident. They like slipped off some black ice, and
Oh
their
my God.
trailer like flipped over the road, and it was like down in this like ravine or something like that. And so we're all
That
like,
is
oh yeah,
crazy.
we're like, holy shit, what the hell's going on? So we get out and we're like trying to help them see what's going on, and like someone's already calling 911 or whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it was like the thing was like upside down, and someone was like okay, but they were like trapped. Their like leg was like pressed against their chest and
Oh
like
my
trapped under the
God.
car and stuff. It was crazy, yeah.
Yeah,
And
that's
like we have this like really intense kind of like drive, and then by the time it's like this is just such a weird trip. But like getting back to like Dave and his like goofiness,
yeah.
somehow during that trip we got into this idea of like Boyzone, and
Mm-hmm.
like Boyzone was like it's the boys and we're here like to party or something like that.
Yeah.
And I think it might have spawned from like Dave being super tired by the time we got to like Banff or something, and we had breakfast, and Dave just had this like glazed over look, and he's like, I think he just like blurted it out or something like that. He was like, "Yeah, this is like Boyzone right here." Yeah. And then that became the joke of the trip after.
Yeah. Yeah.
But and just like these mad funk breakers
Oh yeah,
and
dude.
new age b boys. Wasn't there like a hand sign apparently for new age b
Oh
boys?
yeah,
That's what
no, Steve. Yeah, nobody even like.
nobody knew.
I
Yeah,
knew he said NBC. Oh, so before Filthy Feet, like this was like the beginnings. He called it NBC3 because it was NBC and C3. And he had some hand sign. He was like, yeah, it
yeah,
says NBC3, and like no one could read it. He'd always try and like show us with his chin, like there's the end. Like you can't see anything because his like chin's in the way. And we're like, Steve,
yeah.
this doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
I think when like Nathan was telling me about it, it was like it looked basically like the shocker kind of like hand sign, but it was like some weird variation. He was like, "Oh yeah, you know, it's like there's an N, and then you go there's somewhere there's a B," and I think there was. This must have been at practice. It wasn't at an actual jam. We would never
Yeah.
actually do this, but it was like we were goofing around at practice, and we started doing like this like new age b boys chant. We were like running around in a
Oh
circle,
yes.
doing
Okay.
like
Yeah.
this like shocker hand sign in the middle.
That is so funny. I remember that happening, like after like laughing at the whole hand sign, and we got that going. I do
Yeah,
remember that. Yeah,
yeah. And
totally.
like,
I
and
think
it's like
that's probably from an old video too.
could be, yeah,
The whole like going around in the circle. Yeah, yeah. I'm
yeah.
pretty sure that was like something that we did or something.
And just like random stuff like that Mad Funk Breakers when we
Yeah.
found out about that, and like I think me and Nathan were playing like Excite Bike or something.
Oh
And
yeah.
the theme song is like dun, 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 dun. And for some reason we connected it with like Mad Funk Breakers, and then that just became a song. We had Mad Funk Breakers.
That's so funny. Do you remember
Yeah.
Street Snaps? I remember.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
completely forgot. I don't
Dude,
know.
I was
Like,
I'm so mad I forgot because there's like a little like arcade where you win things, and I won streets. My daughter like we were getting stuff for my daughter's like, yeah, you can get whatever you want, but we're getting those street snaps. And I was gonna like put one on here and like try and get a before the thing, and I totally forgot.
oh my god, yo, I don't know. Like, should we should we introduce the world to street snaps?
Yeah.
For okay, for people who don't know, give people a very basic overview of what Street Snaps is. This is a
So
game that we created.
yeah, so I don't know if you guys anyone knows these things, but they're like a little like half dome rubber thing, and you
Mhm.
flip them inside out, and you put them on a table, and then like after a few seconds, they'll pop up into the air, and like the kids love them, right? They're just kind of like an exciting little toy.
Mhm.
And I wasn't there when you guys invented this, but somehow you guys started playing this game where you would hold your hand over it, and then you'd have to close your hand so you weren't allowed to move it, and you'd have to watch for it, but like it starts to move, and then it's just like jumps, like there's like no time to
Yeah,
react.
yeah,
And we played. I saw you guys like after you invented it, and nobody had caught
I
it yet, and then Nathan finally caught one of them. Yeah.
yeah. I think it was like me and a couple of my like high school friends had
Oh,
came. We came to visit
oh yeah, I met
Victoria
that one guy.
because my one friend lived in Victoria at the time, so we were
Oh
coming to
yeah, yeah,
visit.
yeah.
And I think while we were there, I called up Nathan and I was like, "Hey, we're in Victoria. You want to come and meet up?" And he came and met us. And like we had just gone to some like random arcade, like tiny
Mm-hmm.
arcade, and they had like the kind of thing where you win tickets and then you can like cash in the tickets for a prize. And we got like a pack of those little like I think the official name was like a popper or something like that.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But yeah, after we created this game, it just became known as like Street Snaps. I think
Street Snaps.
Nathan might have coined that name.
Yeah,
But yeah, it
yeah.
was like you pop the thing, and then you gotta like someone else has to fist you in,
Yeah,
and
fist.
so there's like a fist
One
distance,
fist bump.
and then you have your hand on top of the fist, and then you take the fist away, and that's the distance. That's the
Yeah,
official rule distance, and
Street
like
Snap.
you gotta wait for it to so it's like it's inside out, but then it'll start to kind of move before it pops. And I think my buddy Darius, like he's like, oh yeah, it's crowning. It's
It's
crowning.
crowning. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Something
yeah.
like that.
And then all the like terms became super vulgar. Like
Yeah, yeah,
the guy who did the measurement was the fister, and then
yeah,
there was
yeah.
like midwife.
Yeah, it's like someone who's watching the crowning or something like that. Watching it's crowning, it's crowning. Yeah. And like I think at one point, I think still occasionally it'll come up and we're like, oh yeah, we should get it, and then we like go and
Yeah,
find them. Um,
yeah.
but
I got
like
a couple. I'll send
yeah,
you guys some.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
send you one in Japan.
I think at one point.
It's time to go international this week.
Yeah, yeah. At one point, like me and Nathan were joking about this. We're like, maybe we should like invest in like a crate of these things. Or something. If we want this to go like big time, and like we were talking about, yeah, we should make a documentary on street
Yeah.
snaps, and it's like
I
You were
remember
talking.
Carlo. We told Carlo, and he wanted
Yeah,
to do it so bad.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Maybe one day we'll still do it. Because like,
yeah.
I think at that time there was that one like fake documentary that was actually turned out to be an ad for like mountaineering shoes or something like that.
Oh yeah,
But it
yeah.
was like water running or like Jesus running or something like
Oh
that. And they
yeah,
made this whole like fake documentary. We were like, yo, that's so dope. We should do this with
yeah.
like some dumb thing like street snaps.
Yeah, yeah, and everyone
Yeah.
have their own techniques, and no one's ever caught the thing. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah.
hated this game.
The journey to the first catch or something like that. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
It was so stupid.
People have been playing for like decades, and they never
Yeah.
get it.
Um, yeah. Last, so we got all of this tangent with
Yeah,
street snaps, but the last thing that I want to get get you to talk about, maybe just very quickly, is and I don't even know if you know it, but like, what are the origins of Filthy Feet and how that name came about? Because I heard it was pretty funny.
yeah. So we had like formed a crew, like those two, all those crews died out. There's like a few b-boys left, and so we're all dancing together, and we're decide like we need a rebranding, I guess. The NBC3 and Colossal Chaos, those weren't working for us. And yeah, I think we literally put like hip hop adjectives in one hat, and like nouns in the other one. So it'd be like
Like
uh,
elements
yeah.
and
Elements one, and then
sick
like
or
skills, sick or
skills.
ill or
Yeah,
blah
yeah.
blah. Yeah, and then like we pulled them and like really quickly came up with Filthy Feet, and we just like loved the sound of it. And then
Yeah,
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 that's how
yeah.
it's finally
I
stuck
heard some of
around.
the other ones were just so ridiculous and
Yeah, oh
cringy.
yeah. I can't believe because I actually still really like the name, and like the fact that that's how we got it.
Yeah,
So
yeah, it's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing. Yeah,
yeah,
and
yeah,
just like I guess a little extra lore for people is like when the Filthy Feet 10-year anniversary was coming around. I remember we it was like me, Nathan, Mark, and maybe Robin. We were at Rory's place and we were like trying to figure out, piece together a bit of the history and like what year is it actually the 10-year anniversary? When is the
yeah.
10-year anniversary? So we like went back into like old, it wasn't even forums, it was like pre-forums, so it was
Oh yeah.
guest books. And it was like
Oh,
people on
do you
websites used to have,
know these?
yeah, people used to have like guest books and use like this.
Mhm,
It was basically a single post
mhm.
forum, and it was
Yeah,
like you couldn't reply to anything, but people could leave comments and stuff. And it was like
yeah,
tracing it back to like the origins, because Steve would always sign off with like his crew name and like whatever,
yeah,
and we tracked it. I think at this point this was like some random forum that existed, and we tracked it back, and it was like we saw, okay, at this date he was still new age b-boy whatever, and then okay, like this is the next year or whatever, it's suddenly
yeah,
Filthy Feet. All right, that's it. Now we know exactly when.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's so funny
yeah,
too. Like, because we
yeah.
used to always make fun of Steve for that, and who knows? Like, a decade later, it would come in handy.
Yeah,
He
and
always
it was
signed.
funny because we saw some of like the old like beef that used to exist, and
Oh
like
yeah,
all the different names. Yeah, so like chaotic, whatever was it again?
colossal chaos.
Colossal chaotic. Yeah, C3 and stuff like that. So like for especially for like Nathan, and I guess Roy to an extent because he was a little bit later. But like
Yeah,
you
yeah.
guys were like, those guys were like reminiscing, like, oh my god, I remember this stuff and
Mm.
whatever. And
Yeah. Oh, I think we were called something like chaotic rockers in between that. Actually, I think
right.
yeah. There was like a weird. I like literally did not remember that until right now. Like thinking back to all that stuff. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
I think
yeah,
there was some weird stage there. Yeah, but it was like
yeah.
really shortly after we moved into Filthy.
Yeah. But yeah, that was where like we saw all these crazy names and stuff. And there was a little bit about like I forget what the crew was. Something Foundation. It was like
Oh,
Muse and
right. Yeah,
uh
Dan.
Dan,
Dan.
yeah. System.
System. Yeah, sorry. Yeah,
Reflex something.
yeah.
Reflex Foundation or something like that.
Yeah, I think that might have been it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, that was a funny story with Dan too. Like, he had quit dancing, and then we were going down to because he was in a crew like early. He had beef with like NBC Those were the two crews, actually. Sorry, there was one other crew. I when I said only Steve, there was one other group at Vic High, so it was like a high school.
Mm-hmm.
Who this was like all before I started dancing, but they had like there was one other crew and they would battle all the time apparently.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like Ajax and System Dan and a few other guys would battle them. And I think I battled them like once. They were like on their way out when I got there.
Right.
So yeah, there was like one other kind of strand of b-boying other that wasn't under Steve. Sorry, and System like kind of he went away from it for a long time, and then like one time we ran into him and told him we were going to PLU, and he's like, "I'm gonna get practice. I'm gonna come with you guys and enter with you." And so he did, and then like I don't know, he could still be dancing to this day. Him and Rory became good buddies. And,
yeah, he moved out to Montreal and joined Fresh
yeah.
Format. That's
Mm-hmm,
like one of the big crews out in Montreal.
Yeah.
I don't think he's like dancing so much now, but yeah, he was dancing
Yeah.
still for a while. Yeah.
Yeah. It was crazy how much that sparked, and he was just like, when he got back, man, he just started like training, man. It was like, and I think it'd been quite a few years, like maybe like 3 years since he danced before that. Yeah, it was pretty cool to see it kind of reignite that spark in him.
Yeah, and I remember like,
but he's like an OG Victoria.
Yeah.
Like before my time, like
he'll be a guy to get
early,
to.
yeah, like around Steve's like origin time, yeah.
Yeah, and like I remember meeting Muse, and he was really dope. Even though he
was cool. Yeah,
he was like not really dancing at that point. But yeah, and then I never met Ajax, but I know about him through like people making jokes about like how he top rocked or something like that.
Yeah.
It's like looking around or something like that.
Nathan could do that.
That's my only reference is Nathan doing the Ajax top rock.
Yeah, holding his hat.
Yeah.
He's,
looking around. Yeah.
Nathan could like he hadn't danced in years. Nathan could do his top rocks like so good. Yeah, Nathan was always good at like imitating other people for some reason. Yeah.
Anyway, I think that's a good spot to finish. It was really, really fun to, just hear the stories and hear about your art too. That was really cool, and just your perspectives on creativity and art and that kind of stuff. But yeah, it was also just really fun to catch up and reminisce about these silly times, and I hope that it was entertaining for people watching and listening, and hopefully that inspires you to not be so serious and be a bit of a goof sometimes.
Yeah, totally, man.
Do you have any last things that you want to say, or any ways that people, if they want to follow your artwork or whatever, they can do that?
Yeah, so my website's currently kind of getting redone, but I'm on Instagram at Salish. So it's all underscores in between these words. It's Salish artist Dylan Thomas, and there's kind of a lot of my portfolio is kind of up there. So yeah, if you want to check that out, that'd be great.
Yeah, it's really cool. I was checking out the other day. It's cool to see what you're doing right now. Yeah, I always try and share your stuff.
Oh, thanks, brother.
Yeah, cool people doing cool things. Yeah. But yeah, thanks so much for doing this. Thank you everybody for listening and watching, and we'll see you in the next one.
Okay. Sounds good.
Peace.